Do you feel in the downswing that you're releasing the club too early? What does that even mean? Let's have a look today at how we can enhance the wrist movement during the swing, what the differences are between, say, the better players and the say, lesser skilled or more higher handicap players in relation to how the release works, which is really just the change of pace, or more sudden change of pace, I'll say, between the club and the arms and hands as they work during the swing. Hi, I'm Peter Knight, and I've created this channel, Peter Knight Golf, to help you play the best golf you can. Today we're going to have a look at this movement that as the club swings down and through, you can see the club's passing my arms. That's generally the period of the swing that we call the release, or the release movement we'll have a look at as well. So let's do it. Have a look at how that release should work, what the differences are between the good players and the not so good players. So if I swing the club back, say, to here, if we look at two key things with release. One is that there's a change of angle between my arm and the shaft. Now, as the club swings down, let's say I've got a 90-degree angle here. As the club swings down, I've already changed it. It's not quite 90 degrees, but it's only changed a little bit. And then from round about here, where my hands are almost in front of my right leg here, until here, where my hands are outside of my left leg, the shaft has actually traveled through 180 degrees. So it's gone from parallel to the ground here to parallel to the ground here, and yet my hands have only moved from here to here. My hands haven't moved very far. So in that short period of time, the club must have moved very quickly because my hands haven't moved very far at all. So that's one aspect of release. And that's the aspect that feels like the club gains speed very, very sharply. A big difference between a really good player and a not so good player is that when the club swings down, if we have a look at the players who are, say, not quite as highly skilled, as the club swings down, the hands will be sort of well outside my right leg here, and yet the club is horizontal with the ground here, or even beyond that when I get down to here. And then when the club swings through, the club goes through to here, so now my hands are further out away from the left side of my body, and the club's about horizontal. So the club's moved from horizontal here to horizontal here, but my hands have traveled a lot further. So rather than my hands moving from here to here, they've moved from here to here. And even in that demonstration, you can see that the club head moved a lot more slowly. Now, if I try and gain speed and effort with the club, but I don't change how my wrists are working, my swing starts to feel very effortful, and it doesn't really result in much more club head speed. Whereas when I get the feeling of my wrists working nice and freely, that unhinging movement working nice and freely, then I get what players will often describe as a feel of a whip-like action, which is just really the club head gaining speed very quickly. So that's one element of release. The other element is that, and these things occur simultaneously too with the unhinging. From here, I've got the toe of the club pointed pretty much straight up in the air. Ideally, it'll be a little bit forward of vertical, but it's still quite vertical there, just forward a little bit. Now from here, it's aiming at the target, ideally, so I hit the shot straight. And then as I swing through, it's going to move through, and it'll probably have turned beyond vertical again, or somewhere close to vertical. Rather than being highly specific, if we just say that it goes from being vertical here to vertical here, while that might not be strictly true, we can see that there's quite a bit of rotation that's occurred through here. So as the it's rotated through, again, 180 degrees. Now that feeling of the combination of my wrists unhinging and the club face squaring, so it's working through 90 degrees roughly to impact, and then it keeps going. The combination of those two motions, so that's the rolling motion and the unhinging motion, the combination of those things is what we call a release. So a couple of drills that we can do to get the feeling of that. If I hold both my hands without the club in my hands, so now I've got palms facing each other, and back of the left hand's facing the target, palm of the right hand's facing the target. If I sort of swing halfway back and then bring my hands down so that now, as we look from the camera here, my hands are blocking my upper leg, and now I've got the palm of my right hand facing out, back of my left hand facing toward the camera. Then from here, by the time I have my hands, say, blocking the inside of my left leg, now I've got the palm of my right hand, back of the left hand facing the target. And then when my hands are just outside my left leg, now I've got them mirrored compared to where they were there. The back of my left hand's facing behind me. Palm of my left hand's facing the camera, and the back of my right hand's facing the camera. So now I can get this feeling of hands being in front of my body and then rotating through there. And as I'm making this movement, my body is still moving a little bit, and I can almost feel that that movement is a completely free movement through my shoulders, through my elbows, through my wrists. So there's no tension here. I'm actually creating that movement pattern, and you see that my arms are moving quite freely as I do that. Next step is we've got to do it with a golf club. So now I'll hold the grip down a little bit just so the club feels a little bit lighter. So from here, I've got the same idea I had here, hands in front of my right leg, back of the left hand, palm of the right hand facing you. Club facing the target, and the back of my left palm of the right facing the target. And then from here, just outside my left leg, I've got the back of my right hand, palm of my left hand facing the camera again. So now I can get this feeling moving from here, square here. I'm trying to get the feel of that motion occurring very, very freely. So I'm not manipulating the movement within tension or my hands or anything like that. I try and feel like there is some flow to the movement. The other thing too is when we watch that movement from side on, we'll see that the movement occurs on a fairly smooth path as I go back and through. So it should be moving on the correct path as that swings down and through. So practicing that movement and then building the pace of it. So grip the club a little bit longer. I'll swing back a little bit further, but I still feel like I'm moving through that same area there as I swing down and through. If you haven't been doing it correctly, then the challenge becomes greater as you add speed to the movement. That's totally normal. But doing the drill with the small movements and then gradually building it up is going to help a lot. So that by the time we put a ball there, the movement should feel fairly natural. So as I'm setting myself up, you can see that movement I'm making here is just to keep everything really, really light, and then that movement through impact actually feels fairly easy because the movement's occurring quite quickly with the club, but my hands are not doing the work. Practice that movement without a club to start with, just to get the feel of what the hands are doing and how they're going to work together. You will feel some unhinging, and you'll definitely feel the rolling part. And if you practice that both with and without the club over a short period of time, you'll start to find the flow in that movement, and that's going to dramatically affect the quality of your strike and probably allow you to hit the ball with more club head speed as well.